And those are transaction plus zero. Instant settlement, 365, fractured ownership, which is something we're going to be touching on when it comes to tokenization and real estate. So making investment, I mean, the assets is never going to change, just the way capital flows through them and the access to that.
Hello, and welcome to Mornings with Joel, Commercial Real Estate Podcast, where we focus on rising stars and established players in commercial real estate and talk to them about how they are building legacies in today's marketplace. Hello, we're so excited to have you with us today. This is Joel Miller from the Mornings with Joel CRE Podcast. And boy, today is going to be mind-blowing. So sit down, strap in, and you be ready for a very exciting show. We actually have John Walt from EcoCrypt USA with us today, and he'll be talking about the whole world of digital currency and so many other things that we're going to get into. And so quite a interesting discussion we're going to have, and we're excited to have you part of it. So we're looking forward to that. So John, what's happening, buddy? How you doing today, man?
Well, sir, thank you. Always a pleasure talking to you. And thank you for having me on, of course. And welcome to all the listeners from all over the world. It's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you guys notice the foreign accent, John, where are you sitting at right now? What part of the world?
So, yeah, of course, this accent is for some parts of the world acceptable. For us, when we hear ourselves, not so much. But I'm from South Africa. I am currently about an hour and a half outside Cape Town in the Western Cape. We'll be back in the States mid-March somewhere. Last time I was there when we met up was October, I believe, but in the warmer weather as we speak.
Yeah. Well, Cape Town is one of my most favorite parts of the earth, so I'm sure you're having a good time there. And well, that's home for you, so it's a little different for you, but I get it. So, well, good stuff. So, you built this company called EcoCrypt, and it's quite an interesting name. But why don't we start there? Tell us a little. Well, you know what? Before we even do that, who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background, and why should my audience be listening to you today?
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, thank you first and foremost. Well, from South Africa, born here, and I've always been entrepreneurial in spirit. My first business attempt was at 19 years old with one of my rugby friends while we were supposed to be studying at university, and always pursued that. From there, the next business venture, learning, losing, learning, failing, growing, ventured into manufacturing space after 2010 and the corporate side of self-adhesive manufacturing. In the wine side, of course, being in the Western Cape and in South Africa, that's really the core. I grew up in a town called Paul, we're really central in the wine country here, and wine, of course, one of the primary exports from that area. So a natural segue for me in manufacturing into that space. From there, roughly just before COVID, we had plans to move over to the United States. My family at that stage has been involved in importing and exporting many years. First as wholesalers, then to a smaller scale, and of course, with the evolution of that, they sort of digressed. And myself, mid-COVID, moved to Costa Rica to be closer to the United States while the visa processes and things with my whole family. We were there for 3 years going through my legal application. I have a EB visa process that was approved in 23, still back and forth. We'll be settling in the United States shortly this year on a more permanent basis. But in Costa Rica, over a half a decade there, I built business in agriculture, in the hospitality space, while continuing in the United States, building strategic business was involved in the critical mineral space for a while with some developments and key developers there. Very interesting space there. Podcast for a completely different day, of course. And naturally segued with international business and trade. For me, some of the frustrations with banking and everything else with that. For me, when I was approached by the founder of EcoCrypt, Kevin Wambani out of Kenya, rocket scientist turned crypto engineer and blockchain developer, real clever person, way smarter than I am. And from there, he really developed this over many years, and my involvement came about a little over a year and a half ago. And we did a lot of restructuring based on not only where the evolution of the new decentralized financial systems is going, but also the other microeconomics that goes with it, breaking down tokenization in itself and all the other opportunities that goes with that.
Okay.
And we aligned with the incoming administration at that stage, which is your current administration, which was really focused, of course, on the crypto space itself. We're not really crypto people specifically, but we're the developers developed the whole ecosystem, and that's where the name came from as well. And my journey into that was, of course, as CEO, and we've since developed 3 tiers within this big ecosystem, and just one of them is tokenization in itself, and of course, a portion of tokenization that's inevitably happening and will be happening more frequently as the general public, of course, engages more with it and regulations
Okay.
becomes more clear on the other side of things.
Right.
For us, this is where we landed, and we essentially bootstrapped as a private group of individuals, international group. I'll touch on the group in a minute. We bootstrapped this where we're essentially crossing the finish line with the first layer of the institutional groups, World Liberty Finance, and these guys touch on almost everything we do. The difference is institutional money, big money, billions of dollars a month. And for us, it was bootstrap, blood, sweat, and tears for years.
Right.
And crossing the finish line essentially with everybody else now.
Gotcha. Well, Jean, let me jump in here. Let me just jump in for a second because I want to make sure we cover the main things that I know you want to cover, and that I want to make sure gets covered as well. So EcoCrypt basically, because I was going to ask you where did that name come from, and you're saying it's basically the whole ecological corporate digitalization of currency around the world globally. Is that safe to say, or how would you define it?
Very safe to say. I have to mention, though, it's EcoCrypt USA specific. There is another company, similar name, also in that space, completely unrelated.
Okay.
But EcoCrypt USA, we're essentially a multi-division fintech ecosystem. And we're combining 3 core layers: a compliance-ready digital asset exchange, which is one, the financial services platform that will be engaging in as these regulations comes through, and then the RWA tokenization space, and then the internal development space as blockchain engineers that we have in our firm with things in the gaming world we'll be touching on. But essentially, yes, the whole ecosystem, an umbrella covering anything. We're not like a singular exchange and or tokenization manufacturer or fintech manufacturer. We're the whole thing and then a little extra.
Okay. So we're going to break that down because that's important to know, because the first thing you're saying there on your back screen is basically building the compliant gateway between decentralized finance and real world utility. And in a nutshell, people would say, "Oh yeah, I know about that already. I'm familiar with that. There's other companies that do that."
Right.
But what I found is that they do segmented pieces of it. They don't really bring the whole ecosystem under one umbrella. And that's kind of what I'm seeing EcoCrypt USA is basically done. Is that safe to say? So you've got all these different tiers that are able to handle so much of your life as it relates to digital currency and just the way you handle things on a regular basis, even your ownership of assets and other things. Is that correct as well?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
For us, it was important. And again, that married well with the founder Kevin's vision for the company and my background in manufacturing, really making sure that we cover the end-to-end side of it. I mean, as with manufacturing, everything is compartmentalized. You're only part of either a supply chain. For us was covering as much high up upstream and as low downstream as we possibly could to get to the end user. And then, of course, that's also the way where you build real long-term permanent relationships, especially in new market developments and new infrastructure where trust plays a big part especially when it comes to new financing models and things like that.
Okay.
It was important for us to cover all these bases. Yes.
Okay. Gotcha. So let me say this for our audience. If you have questions, put those in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to those either during discussion or at the end. It'll probably be at the end, but just put those in the chat and we'll make sure that we get those questions answered. So Jean, let's go ahead and dive in and make sure that we're on the same page with this. One of the things that I thought was quite interesting is what you mentioned about gaming. Now, gaming, the industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. slews of people globally that game all the time, but it's just fun, and you're just paying money out. But you have mentioned to me that this platform has actually designed a way for a gamer to actually make money while gaming, and also for social media content creators to make money as well. Is that correct? And if so, can you elaborate on that so I can clearly understand it and let my listeners understand it as well?
Yeah, when you hear that out loud, it does make you stop in your tracks a little bit. Of course, this was an inevitable infusion that was going to happen at some point. The crypto world in itself, whether security or utility, but in this case, the utility side of it, and falls under our second pillar of internal development. So, of course, my thought process always was, if I'm the dumbest guy in the room, we'll be fine. So when I'm surrounded by my operational and technical team, I certainly feel that way. And they developed TSI, which is tokenized social interactions. TSI is our token that we developed. So it's a gaming utility, and it's really based on a reward system. What it would do is it connects the social media world with the gaming world. We really wanted to focus specifically on the gaming world. I mean, the social media world is still really exposed and going through, wouldn't use hacking as aggressive as that, but still going through real red flags for us in terms of exposure. There's a lot of people building these things currently. You'll see them everywhere raising crazy amounts of money. One of these guys raised 10 million in 48 hours doing and building these things. So yes, that's there. But for us, that was still a little exposed, because what we wanted to do is it was built as a rewards program where your interaction with your game. So essentially the tokenomics, and of course, everybody can look at the white papers. Everything is pinned. We can talk about those things later, but the essence of it, it's a economic value rewarding players and creators and communities directly. So, and that ties in with the other infrastructure, but this token is already developed. It is actually live on testnet for demonstrations already. This opened the door for us actually internally to really not leverage as much as we wanted to while starting up based on the tokenization contracts we were building. But we completed this, which was actually a very complex or tokenizing model. And we completed this, and the build is complete. And we could actually, within short notice, put this out live. We wanted to, of course, just establish ourselves first in all the tiers. And this one is very excited. So yes, gaming and earning, but it's a little bit more complex than that. And it runs with the node of a specific game. For example, to just really broad stroke it, we will be connected with a specific game. As you achieve certain points and milestones in this game, you're rewarded by either a point scoring system or in-game money, if you will.
Okay.
Now that converts into the tokens that you earn that could be off-ramped in your wallet that you have, and of course, be exchanged to fiat directly. Essentially, gaming and earning money while you're gaming. And for us, the blueprint of this is duplicable, segueing into, of course, the online schooling system. If you think about where education's heading, we can touch about real market disruptors. This is not really a market disruptor, but it's definitely one of the first in the space. We won't be the last. There'll be multiples of this, but we're very excited about that. And it does make people stand still in their tracks. Of course, on our social media, EcoCrypt USA's Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and these things, we have some video footage up where we were promoting this. You could go look at the white papers that's been on all our websites. So www.ecocryptusa.com as well.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that information is available. Just to capsulize it, to make sure I understand that I'm a gamer, I'm playing, and this reward system builds up, and that reward system, I'm getting tokens and other things. That's pretty common on the screen, if you will, but I can't actually monetize that. Generally, those tokens are used to buy other, outfits or shoes, or upgrade my team, or do whatever is in the game that I'm actually doing. But what you're saying is I'll be able to offload that and monetize that outside of the gaming system. And does that currency come from EcoCrypt, or does that come from the manufacturer of the games?
So no, that actually we built the actual token. We have 40 billion tokens that we've built here, and we will gradually, we're releasing 10 billion that will be priced. We have an internal tokenomicist, which is the new economist you have to have on board to be compliant. And he's Maxim based out of Ukraine, which makes sure that the tokenomics there is sound. And because everything is on chain, it's an ICO development. So we built the whole ICO. So you will have your wallet with your KYC process, your whole decentralized system set up. And that will work with those tokens that convert into TSI tokens. And through that wallet could be converted to USDT, which of course is backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar, and then could be off ramped into fiat wherever your wallet is then linked.
Okay.
With, of course, us as the development, we will be adding additional currencies and either fiat, digital cryptocurrencies to where you could swap to as well.
Okay.
And that's part of the development stage. But the ISO is absolutely complete. And at the moment, USDT is what it also could be converted to. And again, absolutely go look at the video. It's really exciting. And if you think about the possibilities there.
Yo, we got to take a quick commercial break though. So hold that thought, because I want to discuss that. And I want to touch on content creators real quick as well, because that's something that our listeners can tangibly grab hold to and say, I can see the value of this right now. And I want to make sure we drill down on that. So let's take a break for our sponsor, and then we will be right back.
How do you build a company that lasts? One with a solid foundation that gets better with time, transforming the first dollar in your bank account into something more, building a product, a team, a culture, expanding to new countries, currencies, and customers, and accessing the capital you need to grow. How do you do all of that? With powerfully smooth banking that keeps you focused on bringing your vision to life.
The Impact Air 99. We asked real people, try the Impact Air 99.
Breathable, light, but protective.
Feels very comfortable wearing it. It looks cooler.
It's almost surprising how much air you can get in.
Engineered with 6 layers of nanoscreen technology that blocks over 99% of viruses and bacteria while allowing you to breathe freely and speak clearly.
My glasses are not fogging up.
I could wear this all day.
Welcome back to the Mornings with Joel CRE Podcast. We're in the middle of our conversation with Jean van der Walt and talking about EcoCrypt USA. So just to pick up on that last thought before we went to break, and then we got to pivot to another topic I want to make sure we cover. If I am a content creator for my business, whatever it is, widgets that I make, and I'm a content creator, you're saying that there's also a reward system here for producing a lot of content on these platforms that would allow me to get these tokens that I could also off-ramp ultimately into currency. Is that correct as well? And how does that work?
Absolutely, yes, sir. So again, that's part of the rewards program, and that's why that's really the utility in this, and why it is a utility. It's a reward. So for us, we are actively currently engaging with sponsorships and partnerships in the social media space and the gaming development space internationally. And with, for example, when you have views, likes, and shares on certain content, you want to promote a game or a video or a movie or a product. Those creates likes, shares, views. That again, the tokenomics there runs with the algorithm there, and that is the convertible side of things that could be off-ramp. Again, the TSI token that was developed itself is the actual cryptocurrency you're earning while all of that plays out in the background. And once that's earned, you convert those, move those into your wallet. From there, you convert into your fiat or your cryptocurrency you want to change. And of course, off-ramp where you're connected. For us, the long-term, medium to long-term here, Q3 2026, between Q2 to Q3 2026, pinned to our own exchange. Of course, could be pinned to other exchanges as well, but for us, part of the bigger development process is to have this pinned to our exchange exclusively for all fun.
Okay, all right, gotcha. So 2 other areas that we're going to cover today, so you guys hang around and make sure you don't go anywhere, because we're going to get to tokenization of real estate. We're going to talk about that extensively. And then also what I want to cover right now is dealing with the financial markets and the underbanked, which is a big concern. There are roughly 1.5, 1.7 billion people around the earth that are unbanked for a variety of reasons. It might be in parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, the list goes on and on. How does the EcoCrypt platform help these people, and how does it help me? I'm banked, so is there any benefit to me as well to use this particular platform that you produced here at EcoCrypt?
Right. I think on the macroeconomic scale, which I should start on this with, is of course the it's the moving from or the integration of decentralized finance with traditional finance or TradFi, as we know. Our banking system is 100 years old. It's a date-based system. And of course, yes, you're banked, but you rely on slow settlement, geographic friction, limited access, and of course, time. All those things are part of the standard operating procedure of traditional finance as we know it. Now, with the migration of time, and I guess the digital age, if you will, again, just briefly on the macroeconomic scale of things, if you think about communications and transportation, that's already evolved into the digital side from the industrial age, which was the last 100 years. The banking system was still built for that. The education system as well, different podcast, but with relation to everybody around the world, the decentralized finance system, that's really the new railways and international trade. So yes, you in the United States, bank me in South Africa at the moment. We have SWIFT in the middle. We have transaction plus 3 to 6 days. All these things are streamlining onto the new decentralized finance rails on chain, if you will, on the blockchain. And those are transaction plus 0. Instant settlement, 365, fractured ownership, which is something we're going to be touching on when it comes to tokenization and real estate. So making investment, I mean, the assets is never going to change, just the way capital flows through them and the access to that. Of course, the compliances and participation goes with it. That's the new. But again, disrupting government governance and regulations, these are all limitations that the traditional finance system had to be dealing with, which is now inevitably changing. And we wanted to be part of that. And our core is, of course, the exchange, the development exchange, which is essentially a crypto bank. But that's an incorrect word to really use it. Just trying to keep it as layman's as possible. That is why that's the new railways, and it's not replacing traditional finance. It's merging because the two have to work together. It's not like one day the lights are gonna go off and the next day the new lights are on. However, because of the database system, it's created a lot of issues. And talking about disruptions, especially in the commercial real estate space, massive disruptions post-COVID with people working from home. And we know with those cap rates sitting pretty back then at 4%, financed at 2%, with 95% occupancy was real great. Now with 0% occupancy, those had to be refinanced now at probably 3 to 4%.
We're gonna get the real estate. We're gonna get the real estate. So hold off on that, okay? But let's go back to real world examples so that our listeners could say, okay, that's great. Yeah, there's disruption in the banking industry, but talk to me, right? I have relatives in Timbuktu that I need to send money to, and it takes 5 days for them to get their money. I have employees working for me in the Philippines, and I need to pay them, and it's expensive for me to pay them, and it takes 2 to 3 days for the money to show up there. I have, some type of settlement I want to do in my brokerage account, and I have to wait 48 hours for that to settle, and then I have to wait for an ACH transfer, and it might be a week before I get to my money. That's my problem. How do you solve my problem? Solve it.
That's exactly the point. Yeah, that's exactly that. So it's transaction plus 0. So instant settlement. That's really the key here. The key is instant settlement. It is international access. So the markets don't close. It's 24/7, 365. So not only do you have access to opportunity and investment and investors, and you have access to global liquidity, global markets, and the instant settlement part. So with that, our exchange is just an example like any other exchange, but that would give you a conversion into whatever currency you're using through the exchange and or trading with and or selling or buying these RWA tokens with. Once you sell, for example, a real estate token, that is converted again to the currency or stable coin that of your choice, converted into fiat. Now, here's where the real key is. The international access with your partner on the other side of the world through their wallet, you'll be settling these instantaneously. Now, with blockchain development and tokenization, we build the infrastructure, the technical stack, the hash code that we develop for each step of protocol that you need to build what you need for yourself. For example, you have to work live, you have to work fast. It's a sale that you could be missing or making. It's that instant access that you have. And of course, the instant settlement part really is the core. That traditional replacement of a system that takes 3 to 5 days, plus all the other additional administrative issues you're dealing with, and regulatory compliances that you're dealing with, where this is all on-chain, all instant, but also from auditing perspective, it's instant because it's all live, all on-chain, every single transaction. So transparency is a really big thing.
Okay, so let me ask you this: I'm unbanked, and I'm a farmer in rural Africa, and I want to sell my peppers in the marketplace, but I don't have a bank account, and I usually just try to transact on cash, but that's dangerous because my wife got robbed the other day coming home from the marketplace. So how does this help me?
Right. And brevity, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah. Having access to this. So the KYC process here, and that's a very important part because the who am I part is always going to be important when it comes to moving money anywhere in the world at any given point in time. So you can't be invisible. There is a KYC process in itself, but it is a simple process. So essentially having access to the internet will give you that. Having a decentralized either cold or open wallet where you then convert your token to actual fiat and or different currencies in which you would then want to settle. So you could tokenize your peppers, if you will, and then from a let me give you an internal example. We are, and if you don't mind mentioning a customer, and that is your own mind, the Meteor Mineral Group, which is a commodity group that is currently focused on nano copper and a laboratory producing nano copper. And what they've essentially done is we're building a point of sale system for them to really keep it very, very simplistic, where they will sell their product in the market. But we've built a token where you want to purchase this nano copper, you order it from them, but you could purchase it online. We've built a system for them that puts their token online on the preferred chain. Their customer will go and purchase the token, either then sell the token, it gets sold burned, and you take actual ownership of your product or commodity or the stock that you purchased, and or keep the token, trade the token as the product appreciates or over time. That is a tradable asset for you, and it's an asset that you hold. And but having the freedom to sell it, so you have many options that you could structure this. Whether it's for long-term investment, whether it's for peer-to-peer transactions, it's a product that you want to sell. Again, it's about, you don't want to sell your paper on the marketplace around the corner in Africa because you can only sell so much and the people around there can only afford so much. Now you have global reach and international reach. And of course, that access really is the opportunity for everybody in the world. And a core part for our founder, Kevin, to give access to parts of the world that didn't have access. Of course, our systems too, I can dive into that more, but you could send money through somebody's phone, you could have Bitcoin, borrow against it, convert it to fiat, send it to somebody's phone or ATM in Japan, and they could go draw money instantaneously. We've got about 28 streams, different streams that we've built in our exchange that has all these things, as well as futures trading. But of course, on the exchange part, it's exciting, but the regulatory side is still playing out. So yes, the Genius Act, which has been signed into law, that is the stablecoin side of things. Now, as the Clarity Act, that's the real big part here, where the traditional finance system is still working out the UX.
Right. Yeah,
so
the government part, I get it. Yeah, that's going to take a minute. So I'm a rural farmer in Africa. I want to sell my peppers. You brought out a couple things that I thought was quite interesting. Number one, as long as I have access to a cell phone, which will give me access to the world by means of satellite technology, I could go to market and I can sell my goods at the market, either and get currency be paid through my digital wallet. That's number one. I can also do farm to table with a restaurant in the UK if I choose to, digitally through the digital currency as well, as long as I have the ability to transact on my phone. And then it'll just be a
Right.
matter of
And
shipping the
of
product.
course, and that gives you access to investment. If you think about a rural farmer, don't have the access to liquidity to expand and to really have an impact on their communities. And these other secondary really things that it brings in from an innovation point of view and a solution point of view internationally is tremendous.
Yeah,
It is almost a podcast in itself to talk about an opportunity.
right.
And again, this side of things, the tokenization side, is live. And I mean, for us, we're using SEC compliant tech stack. So we use the Ethereum, which is a US-based company. That for us was important. So every country, however, will have their infrastructure. For example, we are currently working with tokenizing diamonds in South Africa for a mine here.
Okay.
Even though now it's
I want to get back to tokenization in a minute, because that's a whole discussion in itself. So, and that ties into real estate. So give me a second on that. I want to make sure we close the loop on this. We talked about the underbanked and their situation, but you may mention also that people will be able to get loans without banks, without paperwork. It kind of removes credit bureaus from the equation, and that this is a platform that the participants can actually have ownership in, as opposed to just some mega corporation. So explain to me, for the sake of the audience, how am I able to get a loan without any bank or any credit report or 1,500 pounds of paper and tax returns and all this other stuff by means of this platform? How is that possible?
Right. So essentially, you're not really escaping all of it because the contracts are just digitized and on the blockchain, but still contracts. Now, the KYC process is what covers that. So essentially, once you've gone through that process, everything is already there. Your collateral is, for example, and JP Morgan is currently exploring this with both Bitcoin and XRP, which Bitcoin is, of course, the store of value side, the fiat side of crypto, and XRP on the ledger side, which is the messaging system that really makes things move. They're exploring with this as well as using that as collateral on mortgages and things like that. So traditional finance in itself is already working with that. And again, your KYC as their customer is already in the system and already there. And the essence, that would still be working the same. So you're not completely escaping it. It's just the effort, the paper, the heavy paperwork. And when we get to real estate now, it's the same. Once you've built in rents and first rights of refusals when it comes to buyback clauses and things like that, those are all still contractualized, but it's through the ERC protocols that you use to build your tech stack that relates to whatever it is you want to. And of course, that is part of the exchange that we have, one of those functions that we have. And everybody will all be exploring with this. You will be able to use pretty much the stable coins for sure. And again, that depends on the risk of the companies that want to take going forward and in their internal exposure, which is why you have these treasuries. Things are hedged against these treasuries that you have. Of course, you allocate things there. No different with us. That will have to be the backup collateral and liquidity that backs these risks up. But that is essentially where it will go. You'll be able to use your crypto as collateral for multitude of loans and things. And traditional finance, in fact, JP Morgan, as we speak, is already exploring with this.
Okay, so if I understand what you're saying, let's say I don't have a credit score, right? Because I'm used to transacting in cash, right? And just one of those guys that doesn't believe in the banking system. From what I understand, if I'm able to get, like in certain rural markets, there's microloans, for an example. If I'm able to start borrowing money across the blockchain using the EcoCrypt platform, if I'm someone that doesn't have a credit score, and we know that the credit system is really designed for the more wealthy, right? Because if you don't pay your bills on time, your credit score drops, your borrowing rate goes up, and it becomes even harder to borrow money and dig yourself out the hole, right? So if I'm in that situation, from what you're saying with this particular platform, I can do peer-to-peer loans, if I understand correctly, and build up a credit profile on the peer-to-peer basis, which will enable me to either get back in the game for more traditional financing and be able to do much bigger things later, but I'm not completely cut off from access to capital because of not having a credit score or resources. Is that safe to say? Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's the whole root cause, right? So I think you talk about the solution, you got to understand the problem. The problem was the debt-based system that was there, and really the traditional finance system was built to fail with devaluating dollar 2%, even at the base case of inflation over the last 100 years, has essentially brought the dollar's value to zero. So that was difficult in itself, but compiled along with the debt-based one, so you get stuck in that loop. And of course, as life happens to many people, us as entrepreneurs go through this a multitude of times in life. Before you're successful, you're failing tons of times, your credit score is affected, and essentially, this system is not hitched to your credit score, but of course, your collateral will speak for itself. It's not really that the risk is more internal on that side, but there's no credit score. And of course, will it evolve into that? Will that become something more important? It could be. It probably should be. But I mean, the system is designed for that access. I mean, to give you access and control of that part. And the control really is the important part, where, yes, you can have the best business model. Your credit score from 2 years ago is not good. Can't get investment opportunity, gone. Where if you have access to cryptocurrency in itself. And of course, opening investment internationally is the whole point. Really reaching the globe as your audience for opportunity and investment. And that really touches on that exponentially.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. So let's jump into tokenization. And you couldn't resist getting your fingers into this earlier, so that's okay. I'm gonna forgive you. But the main thing is that I really want our audience to know is this is a commercial real estate podcast, so we're gonna focus on that. But tokenization can be done with anything, is really what you were highlighting. It could be the peppers that I grew in my farm, I could tokenize and sell. But when it comes to real estate, one of the biggest challenges is that real estate has always been illiquid, right? And you have to have some type of capital event in order to get your money out. Either it's a refinance, or what we call in commercial world, a recapitalization, or it's you got to sell the property. That's the only way investors get their money back out. So how does tokenization change all of that for people who want to invest in real estate or really anything else? And what have you guys been doing with other assets? You talked about copper. Let's talk about that first, and then we're going to transition at the real estate to make sure everybody understands that, because the copper has already, you've already been doing that.
Yeah, I think the important part, and I think some of our listeners will forgive me for repeating this a million times. I think before I get into that, people have to understand the significant amounts of money that's going to be moving. So yes, real world assets, any asset, whether it's a security, and of course, real estate will always be a security. So you're not changing the asset, you're just changing the way, or the way is evolving that capital moves through these assets. That's what tokenization is. Tokenization gives access to fractured ownership, and we can get to that, but the volume of money here is really the interesting part. I always refer to the simple analogy where $1 million in seconds is 11 and a half days. Well, $1 billion in seconds is 31 and a half years. And $1 trillion in seconds is 31,500 odd years. An immense amount of money. Now, when you talk about the United States and specifically real estate tokenization, we're talking about $9 trillion in the United States coming to factories or through factories that is essentially going to be either 1 to 2 or 3% of commercial real estate portfolios. If you have $1 billion commercial real estate portfolio, you need to tokenize 1%. It's $10 million that you're going to be tokenizing. Now, so massive amounts of money going to be moving into space, which really is, yes, exciting, but also inevitable because it covers all kinds of assets. Under the security side of things, real estate, you have something like a diamond. We're doing a few of those live. And of course, the nano copper, which is really interesting. We're a laboratory, and of course, they own the upstream too, but the laboratory produces nano copper for the food industry and because the nano space is really the next space of the critical mineral side. It was important for us to be engaging in that because commodities really moved while everybody's still figuring out what's going on. Commodities were moving to the tokenized side first because that really is where everything is. If you look at gold, it's really where the safety of the world is in terms of investment. If you look at the current market, it's certainly the case. And that's why crypto looks the way it looks, because the liquidity is behind gold. There's no trust in the dollar at the moment, and that's pretty much international, always been the case. So commodities have been moving first, and tokenizing these as a security. To give an example of how this would look like, if you take a diamond and you want to tokenize the diamond, the protocols and the processes for that security is creating an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, that will custody this. It'll get vaulted. The certification from that vaulted and the shares of the SPV is what would get tokenized. So fractional ownership really is the opportunity that tokenization gives. Now, what does that mean? It means you own a house or a diamond or something that is, you want to generate liquidity or investment, or you need some capital for a different project. Now, you have a paid off asset in real estate. You could take 10% of your house, tokenize this into 10,000 or 100,000 $10 or $1 tokens, make that available to the international market to purchase, because they're purchasing these tokens has all the contracts that a normal real estate contract will have in A to Z. It's just on chain. And it is listed in the ERC protocols that you're using to build your technology stack on chain. And those have your rents, and it's all automated building the token. So you own this asset, or 1/100th or 1 millionth of one brick of a house on the moon, or in Spain, a castle, or your house in the United States. Somebody in Japan could be owning a small portion of that. That access, and that is really the exciting part of what this gives you. So with tokenizing assets, or RWA is pretty much the term that floats around real world assets. It covers all of this. So we're doing diamonds at the moment, individual ones, mines as well. Of course, we're the output of the mine and a percentage of, for example, tokenized 10% equity in a manufacturing plant or in a mine, where those ROIs gets distributed to that token. And that is your asset. It's your collateral. You can either let it with real estate specific, appreciate with the real estate as you own it, and or buy and sell it when you see fit, as you see fit. And of course, when we're talking crypto as collateral going forward, you could imagine that would be used and could be used as collateral as well on other loans and financing options and solutions coming our way.
Okay, all right. So that makes a lot of sense. So I'm let's say I'm looking to buy a building, and you have all the traditional sources that you have to go through to try to get that $50 million or whatever it is. You could basically take that whole 50 million or a portion thereof and tokenize it and make that available to Planet Earth. And then Planet Earth could say, okay, yeah, I want 10,000 shares of that, or 10,000 tokens, if you will, and buy it from that standpoint. And then if I'm the owner and there's an investor that wants to get out, they don't have to call me up about it. They could just sell their token as you would anything else and basically get their money back and move on to another deal.
Yeah, again, you could build in all the rules and the regulations has to be built in. And again, it is super transparent. It's all on the blockchain. And whatever, I mean, for us, we're using the ERC protocols, the Ethereum protocols. Yes, expensive. Yes, all these things for us, it's compliant. And that's really, I think, what the listeners' biggest takeaway, and all of this should be, that it's new. And I think green flags versus red flags, as you take step by step, is really important when you move into this space, because inevitably the same boiling water that softens the potato hardens the egg, and it's how you use it, right? But yes, it gives you tokenization in itself, gives you international access to investment liquidity and other opportunities as well. Nobody's going to come knock on your door and wants to live in the one brick that they own and visiting you from Spain, but you could build in certain protocols, rules, and regulations in your tech stack that you would use when you tokenize your asset. And if we're looking at real estate, what we've been seeing quite a bit of, and we have some of that under contract already, is where people are using this model to raise capital. So what they're saying is we're putting an asset under contract. We will be offering 10% to the global population in a tokenization model. They work with us and our team. Our standard operating procedures there is we work with questionnaires, and we build you a finalized blueprint based on what you want to get done for your project. Example, you want to buy a hotel or a house or whatever it is, and 10%, you want to raise the deposits to go down there, or cap any kind of cap raise you want to involve in. You make that. We build a blueprint for you that essentially shows that once you've acquired the asset, we would then be paid and tokenized to tokenize this and put it on chain for you. And those allocations, of course, from investment will be allocated automatically, but that's how you open up investment to the global market. That liquidity that comes in buys your asset. So we have some of these currently under contract. Of course, ideally for us, paying customers up front's nice. But of course, we had to work with a lot of these. We've seen quite a bit of that in the commodity space as well. And for us, it created opportunity. So we're sure we can work with you in this manner. And for us, it opened doors to gaining equity. For example, in the nano copper project specifically, we have a percentage equity for long-term sales here that where besides our net profit gain allowed us to really gain as a firm and as a company and as a group of private individuals that's been saying no to corporate money for the better part of the year and a half, and very happily so, that we gained that. And there's a lot of opportunity now with, of course, being in the beginning. We're part of the first wave of everybody else. I mean, small example, World Liberty Finance, the Trump group are going to be taking a small portion of a Trump Tower somewhere and making it available at $1,000 a token for the general public. So nobody would be able to afford previously to own a small percentage of a Trump Tower, but now they could for $1,000. And the principle is the same. And it's going to be applied to every single asset that you possibly can. Of course, the protocols you use and the class, whether it's a security class, where it's a utility, is very important because you can't build tokens that's based on NT everything else, right? Nothing behind it. We've seen people lose millions of dollars in all these things. And that's why for us now, we came online, we've built everything. But we're only switching the lights on as compliance and regulations comes online. Of course, that was for us very, very important. But very excited. The tokenization side is active live end to end. Our core team is, we have members in Kenya, members in Cyprus, Ukraine, United States, and South Africa. Currently, 24 hours a day, somebody's working on some part of tokenization specifically. And we're really excited there. There's a lot of movement there. And I'm sure post this podcast, there's going to be a lot of questions in your space, in your portfolio. And of course, we're going to be happy to be working with Wall Street Capital partners specifically in that line, as you and me have been speaking for quite some time on that.
Yeah. We go back a little ways now. Oh,
yeah, there was some hardball ones.
I know. Well, the future is exciting, and certainly look forward to working with you as, you know, the tokenization side gets built out and grows and everything else that comes with it. So we're excited about that. We do have one question here in the queue. I want to answer that. I don't really know the basis for the question unless there's an age. Maybe this person is a young person, but it asks, from what age can I use or own tokens? And like, you know,
yeah, again, based on the KYC process, right? We have to comply with the country's regulations as well. For example, South Africa, if we're tokenizing a diamond mine here, where we still have to comply with an FSP here. So we're working with a mutual fund and mutual funds here that has the crypto licenses and these procedures. That's South Africa. Every other country has theirs. For us, being a United States company, we're using the SEC compliant tech stacks and those KYC processes. So it'll be based on whatever the country's regulation is. But of course, the people that are much smarter, and this is way younger than both yourself and myself. Everybody in my team is a decade younger and much smarter. So I cannot see that this will be for only older people. I know the young ones will be involved in this. And of course, we want to be engaging with that, but you can imagine risk factors for that. For us as a private firm in general, just out of principle of who we are and what we stand for, that's something we'll always keep a close eye on.
Okay.
In terms of age.
all right. No, I appreciate
I don't want to put a number on that yet.
Yeah.
Let's put a case by case basis, but I would imagine it's young, right? If you think about what kids have access to these days, if you just think about the risks involved, I would say it's a parenting question more than a mine.
Yeah. No, I apologize about that. Yeah, no, that makes perfectly it makes perfectly good sense, you know, what you're saying. So really, at the end of the day, it depends on the laws of the country that you're in as to whether you have the right to, you know, sign these contracts and whatnot. So that's really what it boils down to. And so, yeah, it's going to relate to that. Also, if there are any other questions, please get those in the chat. We'll be wrapping up in a couple minutes here. So please get those in so we can ask those. And if you don't have any questions right this second, but they come to you later, feel free to reach out to us at the Mornings with Joel CRE Podcast, and we will get that information to you. Matter of fact, the email address, super simple, Mornings with Joel CRE Podcast at gmail.com. You can use that to get us messages. Also, if you want investment information about participating in EcoCrypt, as it's, obviously this is a growth opportunity.
On that real,
Yeah, okay, well, go ahead. Just jump in there.
we do have some, of course, having contractualized a lot of these tokenization deals for us as things are still evolving has allowed us in this space, basically, in short, with the current capex of about 4 million in production line, allowed us to have a $10 million cap raise. There is some equity involved and other debt instruments, of course, that we have on offer. Again, we'll work through the right channels. You can go look at our things as well, but we have access to investment opportunity, both in the company as a whole regarding the cap raise, but in, of course, case by case basis, there would be investment opportunities as well. And of course, if your listeners want to reach out through you, they can. And of course, our things are all publicly available as well. The websites and things as well, white papers.
Okay.
And the team will be happy to talk to anybody regarding that. We are represented by Paulsonelli Law, which is our legal group, and of course, our financial group that supports our in-house CFRs, McCracken Alliance. Was very important for us that we had to bring the smartest people in the world to the United States, register United States company, employ lots of Americans in the real estate space, specifically in tokenization. You can talk about empowerment there. You're not a sales agent. You're going to be working for yourself and not somebody. You can imagine the opportunities there, and we're looking forward to employing a lot of Americans in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So for all you listeners, this is an opportunity to get in on the ground level, a lot of opportunity here. And what this platform can basically do is go in a lot of different directions. I guess I'll admit I'm an early investor as well. And
Sir,
yeah, and it's a very, very powerful platform that can do a lot of different things. One thing I like about it is the multiple silos of revenue that are possible is something of interest. So even if one area dips down, the others will fly. So a lot to talk about and a lot to cover here, but I think we got through a lot, from everything from gaming and content creators being able to generate revenue to the underbanked being able to participate in the currency of the world from that standpoint. We also covered the ability to not be locked out of the credit markets because of what this platform can bring to the table. And then the idea of tokenization. And again, tokenization could be anything. It could be a movie that you're trying to launch. It could be anything. And that's the beauty of it. It really opens up a whole world of opportunities. So it's a great thing. And I'm really excited about what you guys have built, John, and look forward to hearing more about it. So we were to wrap up. What would you want people to know? Well,
very much for having me. Thank you to the listeners.
why is EcoCrypt better or different than everybody else? Why should we say this is the company that you should go with as opposed to some of the other platforms that are there?
Yeah, I think importantly for us, real world asset and traditional finance, they're not disappearing, but the infrastructure around them is just evolving. And EcoCrypt USA's mission is to really help build the next generation of compliant global digital capital market instruments, right? And that's why we're a whole ecosystem, 100% privately owned. God First Group, sir. We're a wonderful bunch of people, and we're just really excited about what is inevitably happening, and really looking forward to just really the short term, the next month or two, and of course with all the meetings happening as we speak everywhere else regarding all the rules and regulations, we'll be right there with all the big movers crossing the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fantastic. I really appreciate that. It's, one uniqueness of the platform is, as I mentioned, all the different things that it can provide on this one. It's really a platform, of a lot of different verticals. And that's the beautiful thing of it. So it's a great.
You log into your profile and you'll have your profile and you will have your whole portfolio on your dashboard on there with all and every wallet that you connect multiples.
Mhm.
You'll have access to that. But of course, happy to be showing everybody more that's interested.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll definitely have to get you back for another show. And when you finally get back here to the States, let's get together for lunch again and, chat it up and see what other things we can do to move this forward. And it's always exciting to have you here today. And I know it's getting late over there. You're about 7 hours ahead of us, so probably down for
Another time, sir. Yeah, thank you for having me.
yeah, without a doubt. And when I get back over to South Africa, we definitely got to go back up to Stellenbosch and some of them other areas.
Oh, sir,
Some of that big sign.
you where I am right now, and you know exactly what will be.
I know exactly where it's at, man.
Forward to that.
That's a great time. Me too. Me too. Absolutely. So appreciate you, John. Thank you so much for being here
Sure.
today. And for all of you in our audience, we thank you so much for being here with the Mornings with Joel CRE podcast. We appreciate having you. Please dial in next week as well as we have another exciting show. Have a great afternoon. Thank you so much.